Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Abona Tennis Online Coaching Podcast, where this week I want to get into how to develop your match play skills. If you're listening to this, if you've been following me in any form on my website, my blogs, my social media, you know I'm really big on how to develop match play skills because odds are that you are a competitive person, you're playing some sort of competitive matches, or you're a parent of a child who's playing in competitive tournaments. And so we want to figure out how to develop these skills because you're probably like me, and you love playing tennis, but you also love winning. You love getting better, but you love winning when you're getting better too. So how do we develop the skills that help us enjoy this game in the way that we want, which is in a competitive way? So the first thing I want to get into is, well, what are these match play skills in the first place? Because it is a lot more than simply just technique. You can have the most perfect technique in the world, but if you don't have match play skills, you're going to lose. So these skills oftentimes, especially when you get to a certain level, are more important than technique because your technique is probably good enough. So if you have great match play skills, you can overcome a lot of your technical deficiencies. So one of these match play skills is how to use your strengths and hide your weaknesses. I think everybody knows what side they prefer to hit, either their serve or forehand or backhand or volleys, which one they like to hit, but they don't quite know how to set it up. So they might not realize that they just hit a shot that actually makes it easier for their opponent to find their weakness. And so now the point has completely turned tables and is against them. So learning how to set up your strength, how to use it, how to stay up on offense, very important. And then so that helps you hide your weaknesses. That right there increases your probabilities of winning a point if you know how to do that well. Also, how to position yourself. Where did you just hit your shot? Where's your opponent probably going to hit the next shot? How can you take advantage of that the most? Is this a good time to come in? Is this a good time to sneak in, where maybe you hold back and you wait for that floater to take it out of the air? Do you know that based on where you just hit it, they're probably going to find your weakness? So actually you start moving over before they hit it, and now you just found your strength. So how to position yourself, extremely important. The other one is, what adjustments do you make in your strategy? Throughout the course of a match, if you're doing well, your opponent's going to try to do something else. They're going to try to look for a different way to beat you because their plan A isn't working. If you don't know what strategies to go to, if you don't know what your plan B or C is, if you don't know when to adjust, when to try certain things, you can't just try things at every point in time. There's certain points that you can afford to lose, and that's a good time to try something. So what adjustments to make and when to try those adjustments, very important, because if you're stuck on plan A and you're losing and you don't know how to get to plan B, well, that's going to be really tough for you to make your jump in levels. Another match play skill is developing the routines in between points, such as how to breathe, when to take time, when to play fast. So breathing is an important thing. We all have stress and nerves and some form of anxiety, and that's never going to go away. I'm going to get into that in a podcast. I can't wait about that, but those things never go away. What we get better at is understanding how to deal with it and how to trust ourselves in that situation. So understanding how to breathe can help us calm down a lot, which there we can develop when we're in a calmer place, we can make better decisions. When to take time. Okay, hey, this is an important point. I just lost it. I need to take my time here. I don't want to play fast. I'm in a bad state of mind. Or when to play fast. Hey, my opponent's tired. Let's play quick. Understanding how to interpret these situations, very important. And then how to handle cheating. In juniors, that happens a lot more. Even in collegiate tennis, that happens. On the adult side, it happens a little bit less, but still happens. In the pros, they still have their line calls by referees. But how do you handle cheating? So all these are skills that need to be taught. So because, like I said, they can be more important once you reach a certain technical level in your game. And you get these skills and you develop them by having coached match play and coached point play. So the difference between the two is coach match play is you're going to play 2 out of 3 sets and you're playing one person the whole time and the coach is there with you the entire time or most of the time at least and helping you develop all these skills. Hey, play fast. Hey, play slow. Hey, you see how that ball came from over there? Then you should have been standing here. Hey, good job. That was a great thing what you did there. Way to find your inside out forehand and do all that. So, that's where that happens in the coach match play. So in the point play, it's a little bit more specific. So maybe you're only playing one person for maybe 20, 30 minutes. You play one set and then you move on to another one. So it's not the same exact thing. If you can have coach match play, that's great, because that's when you get the ebbs and flows of your opponent trying to change strategies. Should you change? Should you stay the same? Hey, this is working really well. Let's try to do it more. When you're doing just point play, it can be more specific, less amount of time. You don't get a chance to work on all of that. So having coached match play is extremely important. And I know that sounds very simple and it sounds very obvious, but the thing is that it's not happening. And, that leads me into my next point. So how do you get coached match play? And the problem is that, especially if you're a junior tennis player, odds are you're not going to get that in your after-school program. Those after-school programs have changed a lot over the last decade, and they've really become about generating revenue for the club, for the academy. So they fill up as many courts as they can. They put in as many kids as they possibly can. Even if they limit it to 4 kids, which is that's probably the best ratio you're gonna find, unless kids don't show up. If all the courts are full and you have 4 kids on the court, you can't spread them out and play full-on practice matches. You might be able to play specific points, but you're alternating points, or you're playing 2 and 2. There's no rhythm of like a normal match. So you're not going to get that in a after-school clinic. So how do you get that? Well, there's a couple ways you can get that. So one of them is, if you're a junior, you can start going to a homeschooling program. Now, this is a completely different change, but don't worry, I'm going to get into something a little bit more realistic on what you can do. But you can go to a homeschool program if you're a junior tennis player. That changes your whole life, I know. But that homeschooling programs all have practice matches, because they operate at times where their courts aren't being used as much, so they can spread out more. So that's where you're going to get your practice matches. They also don't have many kids that are there because most kids are going to school. So there's a smaller group, so it's easier for them to spread out. And also most adults are also at work, so those courts aren't being used up. The adults come after school, after work, and so that's where courts fill up. So you can start homeschooling. The other way you can also do it is by actually having a private lesson that isn't for a one-on-one with player and coach. You actually have the lesson as a practice match. So you bring a friend or a practice partner, whoever, and you tell your coach that, hey, this lesson is going to be a practice match. So hopefully they're suggesting that, because I think that's great. I think you can only work on technique so much. You need to work on this if you're a tournament player. So that's one great way to do it, is by telling your coach, hey, I want a practice match during our lesson where you're coaching me throughout the entire time. If you have a friend that wants the same thing, or maybe you work with the same coach, you can actually split that cost, and now you can make that lesson even longer and maybe make it 2 full hours. So you get a full match in there, maybe even 3 sets, and you get great coaching on how to develop all these skills, and your coach can go through it. So I think that's a great way to also do it. And the other one is this is why I ended up starting my business, because I found out that, a lot of kids after school and not getting coach match play. They're not setting up matches at all because they can't. And so you can record your match and send it to the coach. So I think this is a great option, because if you're struggling for extra time in after school to get those lessons, or you're struggling with their after school program to get spread out so you guys can get your coach match play, at the very least, record your match. Make sure you have an agreement with your coach at home, at the academy or home you're going to be with, and say, hey, I'm going to record my match. Can I send it to you so you can watch the entire match and so you can give me feedback? Because if your coach doesn't want you play, how are you going to develop these skills? How are you going to know if the strategies that you're using are correct? How are you going to know if you're positioned correctly? How are you going to know if your routines are the correct ones or the wrong ones? Or if you played fast at the right time or you took your time at the right time? How do you know if you interpreted what your opponent did? All this, all the match play skills that I talked about at the beginning. How do you know that you're going to be doing that well if your coach never watches you play a match? How can they teach you these skills if they don't see you? So it's very, very important for a coach to watch you play. There's no other way to develop these skills. If not, you're guessing the entire time. Even mom and dad can learn to watch a little bit, but I think it's best if mom and dad were not tennis players themselves. And when I mean tennis players, I mean full on high performance players, either at juniors, collegiate. They need to have a very high level of tennis experience to be qualified to say anything, because if not, they're guessing too. And the job of the parent is not to be the coach. That's why they're hiring a coach. So, and if you're the player, even if you're the adult, how are you supposed to know what you're supposed to be doing during a match if it's not coached? I mean, you're learning the game. So somebody needs to teach you this. So if you're only doing private lessons and you're just doing simple clinics, you're mostly learning technique and you're learning very specific things, but you're not learning how to interpret all these things I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast. So you have to develop these match play skills with a coach. It needs to be coached just like forehand technique, serve technique, any other technique. The footwork, it needs to be coached. So, start getting either your match recorded so you can send it to a coach. If your coach, for whatever reason, is not making that time, that's where you can reach out to me, and then we can figure out if either I can help or we have 3 more coaches on our staff that their primary role is to look at matches and see what's going well and what's going not and what needs to be worked on for these players. Where our primary objective is to develop match play skills, see what's going on within there, and from there we develop the development plan of the player. It leads into everything. So if a coach doesn't watch you play, they're very limited on the development plan they can put together for you. So, I would talk to your academy as well if you want to see if they can get more practice matches for you and get coached. If they can't do it, and you're not willing to go to a homeschool program, or you're an adult and hey, you have a job during the day, this is your only option. So how can you get this? You can try getting that lesson signed up with the coach, where you tell them that you're playing that practice match and they're going to coach you through it. The other thing too that you can do is one less day at the academy, and then you play a practice match with a friend, get that recorded, get that sent to the coach, and that way maybe you can get some feedback before you actually get to the tournament. So that's another great way to do it. You don't have to actually just record your tournament matches. You can record your practice matches as well. So why wait to the tournament? Let's try to get better before we get there instead of going through some of these experiences at a tournament. So what I also want to mention, and it's the biggest reason why I've set up my website, wrote my blogs, and putting out this podcast to try to help people, is if you are not developing these match play skills by having a coach watch you play at either practice or by matches that are recorded or in a lesson or in some form, there are players that are developing those skills with their coach. So when you go up against them, you are actually at a big disadvantage. Your learning curve is so much steeper than theirs. So if you want to be able to catch up to them or maybe jump their levels, beat them, pass them, achieve your goals, you're going to have to get these match play skills somehow. Because if not, the odds are you're probably never going to catch up to the players that are developing this way, because they're going to be having more efficient practices on a consistent basis. And when it comes down to that competitive time, they're ready to play a lot more than you are. So make sure you're developing these match play skills. They're very different technique. Technique can only take you so far, just like match play can only take you so far. You also need some technical understanding, a certain type of technical level to be able to execute different strategies, but we have to combine them all. And I think there's too many coaches out there. Too many lessons are taught just based on technique. So we need to develop match play skills more. So start developing those, and let me know if you have any questions. You can reach out to me through my website or my social media. You can find me there, and let me know if I can help in any way. But if not, hopefully this podcast helps and puts you on the path towards developing those match play skills. So good luck out there. Have fun.